Think you know project management just because you read the PMBOK or passed the PMP exam? Think again. In this video, I'm going to pull back the curtain on what really happens once you're on the job. See, the PMBOK and the Agile practice guides, they make project management look clean and predictable. But in the real world, it's more like managing a three-ring circus in the middle of a thunderstorm. Stay with me as I break down how textbook management stacks up against what really happens in the trenches and explore the gaps and surprising overlaps between the two worlds. Okay, so I'm on my way to work today. It's a Wednesday morning, and I wanted to take a few minutes to, talk to some people who are interested in getting into the project management field. I've been in project management for over 10 years, and I just recently achieved my PMP certification. I felt that it was kind of a necessary step. I always like to stay competitive in the marketplace. Despite the number of years of experience that I have in running both large and small scale projects, just having that certification just adds a different uh, level of credibility to myself in the marketplace. So that's why I pursue my PMP, and I'm happy to say that I have it now. But one of the things that I found interesting in studying for the PMP was that I had to basically unlearn some things and relearn them as it relates to passing the exam. But I always kind of kept a mental note of those things that I thought were book sense versus real life actions. One of the things that I found that was different, or a little bit different, and I'm only speaking about my experience in my organization and my projects that I've ran or participated in. And I know that one of the themes that you'll hear throughout your studying and even on the exam questions is don't ask the sponsor for help or for advice or for guidance. The questions and the answers kind of allude to you as a project manager not including or involving the sponsor in some of the decision making processes. But from my own personal experience, I learned that that's not really the case. Actually, the sponsor wants to stay informed. The sponsor likes to be involved in some of those larger project impacting decisions. And so, although you don't want to have them to do your job and you don't want to go to them for, you know, advice on what your next step should be, I completely agree with that. As a project manager, you should have some idea of what you need to be doing next or how to mitigate or avoid some of these risks that you may have in your project. But keeping your sponsor informed throughout the process is extremely important, because the sponsor is typically the mouthpiece of the project. They are the ones that's going to champion the project. Typically, they're the ones that are meeting with the company's leadership if they're not already part of the leadership. They will be meeting with some of the key stakeholders in the project, the people behind the scenes, not so much the people who are going to be recipients of that change, but some of the initiators of that change. And so keeping that sponsor involved, keeping that sponsor informed will only help you in the end, because their job, in my opinion, is to be the servant leader for you. Their job is to keep the powers that be informed about what's going on, so they don't come to you and ask you questions at a higher level than maybe what you are privy to as a project manager. So yes, you don't want to have the project sponsor to be doing your job for you, but it is highly, highly important to keep them involved and informed throughout that process. Another thing that I learned that's a little bit different from the book application versus real world application is all of these different documents. You know, you got your risk registry, you have your stakeholder engagement log, and you have all of these work breakdown structures, and that stuff is not always required on every project. Now, a high level roadmap, a high level milestone map, definitely going to be used because, again, this is going to be your way to kind of judge and measure where you are in the process. And if anyone is inquiring about where you are in the project, you can always refer to either the project plan or the milestone visual aids that you can produce. So I can see those being used quite a bit. I've used them all the time in my projects. But stakeholder, listing out all of the stakeholders, you're not really going to do that. You obviously you need to know who your stakeholders are, but generally you're going to be keeping that type of record for your key stakeholders. Maybe you'll have key people in leadership. Maybe you'll have, if you're working interdepartmentally, you'll have key individuals who are over that department or who the project will be impacting the most. Those are your key stakeholders within each department. And then you have your project team. You're obviously going to have a project team as a project manager. I work in IT project management, so a lot of my project team members are coders and system admins and infrastructure people. They're not fellow project managers. So I don't do the type of work that they do. I oversee and manage and ensure that the work that they do is getting done, and I am making sure that they have all of the resources that they need to get it accomplished. You're going to spend a lot of time doing that, but all of those other forms and documentation, you're not going to exactly need to produce those, but you need to know that they exist, and you need to work through them, like work breakdown schedules and your risk registry. You don't have a formal risk registry, but you need to know what those risks are in the process and what the plans of mitigation or contingency plans that go along with encountering some of those risks. So that's another thing that I say that's a little bit different than what the book teaches you versus what's in reality. You have to really, really educate the people on your team if they're not already familiar with the Agile process, and definitely the stakeholders about the Agile process, because people are so used to projects being in a traditional waterfall state. So they're looking for a full-fledged plan of action from the beginning all the way through to the end. But what they don't understand is this is an Agile type of process. So you're not going to have the full details of everything right off the top. And so, in order to not get a bunch of questions about what's next and where we are and how much more do we have to do, and all of these questions that come along with that, educating your stakeholders and educating the people involved in that Agile type of process or project will, save you headaches. And then part of education is letting them know that, listen, everything is not going to be planned out exactly. We're going to discover things. We're going to learn things as we go. We're going to adjust and build out this process or this project plan piece by piece. But we're going to have deliverables along the way, and you're going to see progress along the way. And we're going to show you where we are in that process. But every step won't be laid out from the beginning through to the end. And your patience and understanding and participation and support in helping us to develop this project throughout the way will be key to the project's success. And so you just got to be able to weather those storms. You got to be able to help people get on board and help people to understand what that process is. And so you're going to spend a lot of time educating people and getting them to understand what type of project you're running, whether it be a traditional or an agile or even a hybrid type of process or project. those are some of the things that I found different. Some similarities, it's definitely communication. Communication is going to be key. That's one of your main jobs as a project manager, is to keep people informed. You're not some glorified, you know, appointment maker. You're not some glorified note taker. You're actually a communicator. You're actually somebody who's managing that progress and that process of that project. And it is your job to keep people on track. It's your job to orchestrate these meetings so they don't get off task. It's your job to make sure that the proper communication is going out to your different stakeholders in the way that they want to receive it. So communication is going to be key. Definitely understanding the risks, knowing how to see them, how to either avoid them or address them or mitigate them. Having those contingency plans, you'll hear lots of contingency plans versus risk management. But having those plans in place on what to do if this happens or what to do if that happens. You need to be able to kind of have a big picture view of the project and know enough about what could come down that could either hurt the project, or sometimes it's some good risks that we may face that may be helpful to the project. But you don't want to be blindsided about a risk, because that's your job as a project manager to kind of see those and foresee those. And you'll get a better understanding of what those could be as you keep close to the project and stay close to your project team and allow your team to help you foresee what may be coming, because they're down in the trenches and they know um, from past experience or just from industry knowledge of what could possibly happen. So those are definitely some things that are similar. You're going to do all of those domains. You're going to initiate. You're going to plan. You're going to execute. You're going to monitor and control, and you're going to close. All of those things are absolutely true in the book and in reality. And you're going to do all of those 5 or 6 processes for each phase of the project. You may have an initiation phase, but in that initiation phase, you're going to plan out some stuff and you're going to monitor and control what's going on, and you're going to close that phase out of that piece, and then you're going to move on to planning. And a lot of these things happen simultaneously. Initiation could be talking about what we need and what that project is, and so you're kind of getting that groundwork going on. But in order to get that full project charter written, you're going to have to do a little bit of planning involved in that, and understanding what timelines you may face, what things you will and won't be able to include in that project. And so you'll find that a lot of these things overlap. It's not a start, finish, start, finish, start, finish. And then another thing, and I'll kind of close with this, is that critical path. Believe it or not, critical path is important. When you are hashing out your project plan, and when you're coming up with your milestones and getting down to the work breakdown structure of things, there's going to be a critical path of things that just have to take place, and they're going to have to take this amount of time. And so this will help you to come up with that full project timeline. But you need to know what that critical path is and what elements and actions and processes and steps are involved in that path, because some things you just can't slide on. These things have to be done, and they just have to take this much time. And you need to know when some of your critical path actions may be in jeopardy, and you have to do your best to not let those cause any project delays. So there's some things in there that I talked about that are different than what the book teaches you, and there are a lot of similarities in what the book teaches you. If you're looking to pass the PMP exam and you're already in the project management field, you're going to have to do what I did. You're going to have to unlearn and relearn, and then make a combination of both of those things that you already knew with what you've learned, and that is going to help you become a better project manager. I've already seen some of the things that I've learned in the course of taking these classes and studying for the PMP exam. I've already included a lot of those things in my process that I do every day, and I think that that's been a great improvement in just this short amount of time. So it's definitely worth it. So keep at it. You can do it. You can make it happen. All right, guys. Talk soon.